Ratatouille, one amazing chef. Deep in the French countryside lived a rat named Remy. Remy had an amazing sense of smell and taste, and dreamed of one day being a great chef. He often snuck downstairs from the attic to secretly watch his idol, Chef Auguste Gusteau, on TV. One day, Remy was watching TV when the old woman who lived in the house was asleep. Remy learned that Gusteau had died of a broken heart when his restaurant lost his 5-star rating. He was so shocked by the news that he didn't hear the old woman wake up. She saw him and tried to catch him. Then she saw his family and friends. "Evacuate! Move! Move!" cried Remy's father, Django. He led everyone to a riverbank to sail through the drain. Unfortunately, Remy got separated from his family and somehow ended up in Gusteau's restaurant in Paris. It was Remy's dream come true. He watched the kitchen from the skylight. Down below, a tall, awkward young man named Linguini handed a letter to the chef. The chef's name was Skinner. He had worked for Gusteau for many years. He was not very nice, and he looks really grumpy too, doesn't he? Linguini explained that his mother had known Gusteau and I think she'd hoped I would get a job here, the young man explained. Linguini was to be the garbage boy. It didn't take long for things to go wrong. He knocked over a pot of soup. Then he tried to cover up his mistake by adding water and spices to the soup. Remy saw it all. He knew the soup would taste awful. The rat jumped down and began to add ingredients to the pot. Linguini saw him. Just then, Skinner entered the kitchen. "The soup! Where's the soup?" he demanded. Linguini hid Remy under a colander. He didn't want to be seen with a rat. Skinner saw Linguini holding the soup ladle. "How dare you cook in my kitchen?" Skinner yelled. Before anyone could stop it, a bowl of the soup went out to the dining room. A food critic ate it, and to everyone's surprise, she loved it. Linguini knew that he would have to cook it again. When Linguini and Remy were finally alone, Linguini discovered that he could talk to Remy and that the rat could understand him. Linguini didn't want to lose his job, but he didn't know the first thing about cooking. He realized Remy could help him. Linguini took Remy home, and they soon came up with a secret plan to cook together. Remy would sit inside Linguini's hat and tug on his hair, steering him toward the needed ingredients. They practiced with Linguini wearing a blindfold. Before long, Linguini was chopping, mixing, and cutting just as Remy directed. The next day, Skinner told a chef named Colette to train Linguini. She gave him strict instructions. Keep your station clear, keep your arms in. She gave him tips on grating, peeling, dicing, and slicing. "Thank you for all the advice," Linguini said. Colette gave him a smile. "Thank you for taking it." Customers started to ask for more and more of the dishes that Linguini made, with Remy's help. Meanwhile, Skinner finally read the letter from Linguini's mother. It turned out that Augustus was Linguini's father. That meant the restaurant belonged to Linguini. Skinner was very nervous. He had his own plans for the restaurant, and he didn't want to lose it. He knew what he needed to make a plan. Outside the restaurant, Remy ran into his brother, who led him to the rats' new homes in the sewers. Their father, Django, was surprised and pleased to have Remy back. "My son has returned." Remy looked around. The other rats seemed happy, but Remy knew he couldn't stay. Remy explained that he had a job with humans. Django was upset. He explained that humans were enemies of rats. "No, Dad," insisted Remy. He didn't think it had to be that way. He headed back to Gusteau's, determined to prove his father that the rats and humans could get along. When Remy returned to the restaurant, he discovered the letter from Linguini's mother. He'd also found Gusteau's will. Remy quickly realized that Linguini actually owned Gusteau's restaurant. He just didn't know it. Just then, Skinner arrived. Terrified, Remy grabbed both pieces of paper in his mouth and ran. "No, no!" yelled Skinner as he chased Remy out the door and down to the river. The selfish chef couldn't let the rat escape. Remy jumped from the riverbank onto a passing boat, using the papers in his mouth as wings. But rats can't fly, that's silly. As the rat jumped to another boat, Skinner jumped after him, but he didn't quite make it. Splash! The angry little man fell into the water. Skinner floated helplessly away as he watched Remy get away. By the time Skinner returned to the restaurant, Remy had told Linguini the truth, and he was the new owner of Gustav's. Linguini fired his old boss. See, that's what happens when you be a meanie butt. Over the next few weeks, the restaurant became very popular. Everyone wanted to try the new dishes Remy had been telling Linguini to make. But Linguini was more interested in being famous than in cooking. He even held a press conference. To everyone's surprise, Anton Ego walked into the press conference. He was the same restaurant critic who'd taken away Gustav's 5-star rating. "I'll return tomorrow night with high expectations," he warned. Remy thought Linguini was enjoying all the attention a little too much. Then, when they were alone, he pulled Linguini's hair really hard. That's not a nice thing to do. You don't pull people's hair. Linguini yelled at the rat, "I'm not your puppet." They fought, and Remy left. The next day, Ugo arrived at the restaurant. "Tell your chef Linguini that I want whatever he dares serve me," he told a waiter. Inside the kitchen, things were bustling. Then somebody saw Remy. He'd returned. "Rat!" someone shouted. "Don't touch him," insisted Linguini. "The truth is, I have no talent at all, but this rat, he's the cook." All the cooks left, including Colette. They were disgusted. Linguini knew he and Remy couldn't do it all by themselves. He sadly went into his office. Remy's father had watched everything from the shadows. He was surprised Linguini had stood up for the rat. "I was wrong about your friend, about you," he said to Remy. Jangle whistled, and the rat streamed into the kitchen, ready to help out. "We're not cooks, but we're family. Tell us what to do and we'll get it done." The rats went through the dishwasher to clean themselves off, and that's silly because you don't put rats in the dishwasher. They were ready to cook. Remy told them exactly what to do. This time, he was the chef, and Linguini acted as waiter. Colette also returned, surprised to see dozens of rats helping. Remy made ratatouille. The delicious dish brought back wonderful memories from Ergo's childhood. When Ergo insisted on meeting the chef, Linguini waited until everyone had left and then brought out Remy. The next morning, Ergo gave the restaurant a 5-star review in the newspaper. He didn't care if Remy was a rat, only that he was a great chef. Unfortunately, the health inspector closed down Gustav's, but soon after, Remy opened a new bistro called La Ratatouille. The main dining room was for humans, but a hidden dining room was reserved just for rats. Remy could be a real chef at last. The end.